We are told that wealth is a reward for effort, that the world bends to diligence and virtue, yet the machinery of fortune moves without care for morality. Most wander, laboring in the service of illusions, believing themselves architects of prosperity while they are cogs in someone else's design. Observe closely. Ambition is rare, compliance is abundant. The majority are not builders of power, they are instruments for the construction of another's empire, conduits for the accumulation they will never touch. You will find that in every market, every office, every institution, the invisible hand is less a force of justice than a lever of control, and human labor, human desire, human trust is its fuel. Few seek dominion. Most are content to be the means, not the end. And those who understand this play the game not with hope, but with calculation. Fear and desire, the twin engines of human behavior, are wielded with subtlety. The masses follow the promise of comfort or the threat of loss, rarely the abstract summons of strategy. Loyalty is a currency, yet fickle. It flows toward power, not principle. Betrayal is inevitable. It is the law of men when opportunity whispers louder than conscience. A ruler who expects fidelity without understanding its price is blind, a craftsman who ignores the nature of his tools. Recognize that your allies are shadows, your enemies, mirrors. Both reveal the terrain on which you must operate. To navigate it, one must cultivate a mind both detached and observant, capable of seeing the threads that bind intention to action, cause to consequence. Wealth itself is a theater, a stage upon which the unprepared play roles they do not comprehend. Those who control it understand appearances, timing, and manipulation. They do not ask if it is fair. They ask if it can be taken, defended, amplified. Money obeys strategy more than merit, influence more than labor. Observe how the world rewards those who anticipate, who exploit the gaps in perception, who convert information into leverage. Those who dream of riches without calculating risk and intent are not masters. They are servants, instruments tuned to the resonance of another's power, and the world does not pause to teach them. Nature is indifferent, and society does not forgive ignorance of its laws. To rise, one must accept the discomfort of clarity. It is not enough to desire. One must study the dispositions of men, the weaknesses in structures, the fleeting opportunities masked by routine. Power is not moral, it is structural. It is not a reflection of virtue, it is a function of foresight, audacity, and the disciplined use of human tendencies. Observe the world as a battlefield, not a classroom. Allies may turn, friends may falter, laws may bend. One must act as both commander and tactician, predicting, adapting, exploiting. Every interaction, every contract, every handshake is a move in an unending game whose stakes are survival, influence, and the control of resources. The tools of wealth are many, and the hands that wield them are often invisible. The banks, the corporations, the institutions that appear to serve the people are themselves instruments of power, extensions of ambition that move like currents beneath the calm surface. To be unaware of this is to be swept along, to be a leaf on a river you do not control. The clever observe, the ruthless calculate, and the patient prepare. Those who master wealth know that control is not given. It is seized, maintained, and, when necessary, defended with the precision of a surgeon and the relentlessness of a general. Human nature offers no guarantees, only probabilities, and the successful measure the world not by promises, but by patterns of behavior, by the predictable oscillations of fear, hope, envy, and greed. It is a cold calculus. To rise, one must first recognize the instruments in play and the limits of trust. The office that seems friendly may conceal competition. The partnership that glimmers with opportunity may conceal betrayal. All human alliances are provisional, all loyalty contingent. And yet, within this reality lies possibility. To understand the mechanics of influence is to glimpse the engine of wealth itself, to see that every negotiation, every favor, every smile is a lever with which the world can be moved. One must learn to read the signals, to anticipate hesitation, to exploit indecision. Those who act from clarity and calculation alone are seldom surprised. Those who act from hope are destroyed by it. The illusion of meritocracy is persistent because it soothes the masses. Virtue is praised, diligence rewarded in stories, but in practice, opportunity is concentrated, power concentrated, and the tools of wealth are distributed according to the vision and audacity of those who seek them. Labor without strategy, obedience without discernment, effort without foresight. These are the patterns of the subordinated. They are useful, expendable, predictable, and herein lies the secret no one admits. Most people exist to serve the designs of the few who understand the architecture of advantage. To see this clearly is not cynicism. It is the requirement of survival in a world that does not honor innocence. Fear and respect are intertwined, and both are manipulable. A ruler, a leader, a master of fortune knows the delicate balance. Too much fear creates rebellion. Too much leniency invites neglect. One must gauge temperament, measure desire, and understand the underlying incentives that guide action. Those who fail to do so are blindsided, their plans unraveling like fragile threads in a storm. The wise recognize that the hearts of men are neither entirely loyal nor entirely treacherous. They are instruments tuned by circumstance, and those who play them with skill extract obedience and advantage. Wealth is not won through sentiment. It is secured through calculation, patience, and the measured application of influence. Observation is essential. One must watch not only the visible moves of competitors, but the subtleties of hesitation, the inconsistencies of rhetoric, the faintest signals of intent. Opportunity hides in shadows, in gaps between words and actions, in contradictions of belief and behavior. To master wealth, to seize influence, one must cultivate perception, discipline, and timing. A single miscalculation can invert fortune. A single insight can create an empire. Power is asymmetrical, and those who see clearly act decisively, while the masses remain paralyzed by expectation, morality, or indecision. All strategies are ultimately human puzzles. Each decision, each investment, each alliance is a calculation of probability, risk, and consequence. Those who fail to approach life in this way serve as tools for others. Those who succeed become architects of reality, constructing empires with invisible hands, turning instinct and knowledge into instruments of influence. Even the most formidable structures of wealth are fragile, sustained by perception, maintained by control, and dependent on the constant adjustment of tactics. One must always act, always anticipate, always prepare, for the world does not forgive error, and indecision is a luxury few survive. To hold power is to accept solitude. Decisions must be made alone, weighed against consequences that others cannot perceive, carried with a clarity of purpose that isolates the mind. Companionship is provisional, counsel is suspect, agreement is rarely genuine. Only the disciplined intellect, attuned to the currents of human ambition, can navigate this terrain. Every relationship, every alliance, every engagement must be assessed for utility. One must understand the motivations of others, the vulnerabilities hidden beneath posture, and the incentives that drive behavior. Wealth and influence are constructed in this intersection between perception and action, between opportunity and will. The theater of appearances governs every interaction. Those who control perception control reality. Wealth is less about accumulation than about the orchestration of belief. Markets, politics, even friendship are layers of performance, and those who fail to appreciate this remain servants to illusions. To command is to direct attention, to manipulate expectation, to structure belief so that others act in ways that advance strategy. Truth, morality, and justice are secondary to efficacy. Results, consequence, and sustainability define mastery. Those who recognize this act, those who deny it, are acted upon. Control is not cruelty, it is necessity. One must manage resources, manage human behavior, manage risk, and manage perception. Every action has consequence, Every decision carries weight, and indecision is fatal. The mind of a master must be precise, calculating, and unsentimental. Sympathy for weakness invites exploitation. Hope for loyalty invites betrayal. To survive and thrive, one must understand both the potential and the limitation of each human instrument. The world is indifferent to merit. It responds only to skill, strategy, and will. Ambition is the fuel of strategy, yet it is unevenly distributed, and most squander it unknowingly. Those who achieve are not inherently superior in virtue or intellect. They are superior in calculation, in the cold recognition of opportunity, in the willingness to act where others hesitate. Wealth and influence are not bestowed. They are wrested from circumstance, negotiated through pressure, seized in the spaces between expectation and action. Observe those around you. The majority labor with diligence, yet produce little beyond sustenance for others' gain. They are instruments, cogs, expendable components in systems designed by minds attuned to leverage and consequence. Recognize their patterns, predict their moves, and employ their energies without illusion of moral recompense. This is the anatomy of advantage, the architecture of dominion. Every human is motivated by a combination of fear and desire, but the balance is unique. The observant manipulates this balance, understanding that incentive is often more persuasive than reason, that threat is more potent than admonition. Authority is maintained not by proclamation, but by perception, and perception is a currency more valuable than gold. Those who fail to appreciate this are controlled by the very instruments they presume to command. To master wealth is to understand human behavior as a system, a network of predictable tendencies and exploitable vulnerabilities. One must act with foresight, patience, and the subtlety of a predator navigating its terrain, unseen until the moment of decisive engagement. Power, once achieved, is perpetuated through the orchestration of loyalty and the calibration of fear. Men and institutions follow those they trust, to foresee, to protect, to reward, but also to punish when necessary. The wise recognize that loyalty is never absolute. It is conditional, transactional, and responsive to advantage. Even the closest ally may pivot, and even the most secure structure may reveal weakness under pressure. Continuous assessment, relentless vigilance, and adaptive strategy are the only safeguards against erosion of control. Wealth is fragile because it relies on perception and human compliance, and every structure of influence is contingent upon the maintenance of both. Observation alone is insufficient. Action must follow, precise and decisive. Indecision invites decay. Hesitation invites encroachment. Markets, politics, institutions, and alliances operate as dynamic systems in which the timid are swept aside. Success favors those who combine insight with audacity, who move where others merely speculate, who exploit uncertainty without hesitation. Every encounter, every transaction, every negotiation is an opportunity to consolidate advantage, to extend influence, to shape reality to one's design. Those who do not seize these moments are relegated to the servitude of circumstance, tools rather than architects. Understanding the psychology of others is essential. Observe ambition, measure greed, anticipate envy. The visible action is rarely the entirety of intent. Beneath gestures and words lie currents of desire and fear. To anticipate these currents is to gain leverage, to influence behavior without confrontation, to achieve objectives with minimal exposure. Knowledge is a weapon, perception is armor. The ruler of wealth, the architect of influence, wields both with precision, understanding that human behavior is both instrument and obstacle. Strategy without comprehension of these forces is empty. Foresight without discipline is wasted. The orchestration of perception extends beyond immediate interaction. Reputation is the scaffold of authority. Influence is the architecture of compliance. To be perceived as capable, as decisive, as formidable, is to command even without direct action. Wealth is less a function of accumulation than of the alignment of belief and behavior. Those who control perception control opportunity. Those who fail to shape the narrative are shaped by it. Every gesture, every communication, every demonstration of competence or restraint carries the weight of consequence. Mastery is the skillful interplay of action, image, and anticipation. Isolation is both burden and advantage. Decision-making is rarely collective. Responsibility cannot be delegated without compromise. Allies offer counsel, but their interests diverge from one's own. Friends may serve. Enemies may provide clarity. Solitude sharpens judgment, reveals truths obscured by consensus, exposes weaknesses in strategy unseen by the distracted or the complacent. To navigate the complex machinery of wealth and power, one must cultivate independence of thought, clarity of perception, and the discipline to act unencumbered by sentiment. Every interaction is a battlefield, and every choice carries the weight of consequence. The untrained perceive opportunity as chance. The strategist perceives it as terrain, to be mapped, measured, and exploited. Those who fail to act decisively are swept aside by those who understand the calculus of advantage. Observe the institutions, the corporations, the hierarchies. They are instruments of intent, channels of influence, mechanisms by which human labor and ambition are converted into power for the few who anticipate. The masses participate willingly, blinded by routine, comfort, and the illusion of agency. To master wealth is to move within this system with both vision and restraint, to strike where others are paralyzed by convention, to extract value from every interaction without expectation of gratitude or morality. The anatomy of control is subtle, woven into the structures of human interaction. Fear and desire, reward and punishment, hope and expectation, each is a lever. Each can be calibrated to produce obedience, compliance, or exploitation. The successful do not rely on the goodwill of men. They rely on understanding the levers that move men, the patterns that guide behavior, the impulses that dictate action. Loyalty is earned, yes, but also structured. Obedience is maintained through clarity of consequence, and influence is extended through the orchestration of perception. Those who fail to comprehend this are conscripted into systems not of their making, instruments wielded by minds attuned to calculation rather than sentiment. Timing is the silent architect of success. Every decision has a moment in which it is effective and a moment after which it is wasted. To act too early invites resistance. To act too late invites loss. Observation alone is insufficient without the capacity for execution. The one who masters timing controls outcomes, orchestrates events, and transforms circumstance into advantage. Wealth, power, and influence accumulate for those who act in accordance with opportunity and vanish for those who hesitate. The difference between master and tool is the courage to act with discernment, the discipline to measure consequence, and the patience to strike when the alignment is precise. The illusions of morality and virtue serve those who do not understand the architecture of influence. Men speak of fairness, of justice, of ethical reward, yet the world operates on leverage, consequence, and foresight. Those who cling to sentiment are guided by illusion. Those who embrace calculation see the landscape as it is, unadorned and unforgiving. To succeed is not to be virtuous, but to be effective. To command is not to be loved, but to be respected, feared when necessary, and understood always. Wealth is not the reward of goodness. It is the fruit of comprehension and the relentless application of insight. Information is the currency of power. To know is to anticipate. To anticipate is to control. The visible transaction is rarely the sum of reality. Beneath every agreement, every handshake, every public declaration, lie currents of interest, fear, ambition, and strategy. The prudent mind observes these currents, mapping their intersections, predicting their flow, and intervening when opportunity presents itself. Human behavior is predictable not because men are simple, but because they are consistent in their responses to incentives and threats. Those who recognize this exploit it. Those who do not are exploited. The management of perception extends beyond immediate interactions. Reputation is a scaffold, influence a network, and visibility a weapon. Those who control how they are seen control expectation and, by extension, opportunity. A single impression, a single carefully measured act can ripple through networks of influence, consolidating advantage, redirecting loyalty, and deterring challenge. Wealth is amplified by perception as much as by accumulation. The one who masters both is untouchable. The one who neglects either is vulnerable. Every communication, every gesture, every strategic silence is a tool in the assembly of dominion. Discipline is essential, for opportunity is fleeting and human error relentless. Every decision must be weighed against consequence, every action measured for impact. Indecision is exposure, hesitation is vulnerability. The successful mind cultivates foresight, patience, and precision, understanding that every interaction, every engagement, every alliance carries risk and reward. Those who ignore this calculus are instruments in the designs of others, their labor and loyalty exploited, their potential squandered. To be a master is to exist beyond such limitations, to shape circumstance rather than be shaped by it, to act with the calm inevitability of inevitability itself. Ambition is a shadow that follows every man, often unnoticed, yet persistent. Most stumble blindly beneath it, unaware that their labor serves the designs of those attuned to its rhythm. To observe is not enough. One must interpret, anticipate, and act. The instruments of wealth are human hands guided by invisible levers: fear, desire, envy, hope, and those who fail to read the currents are swept along as cargo, not captains. Power is patient, disciplined, and exacting. It does not reward naivety or sentiment. Every handshake, every favor, every smile is a potential vector of advantage or betrayal. The successful discern this and act accordingly, while the unobservant remain tools, unaware of their own utility in the machinery of ambition. All alliances are provisional. Even those who appear devoted have motives, hidden or unacknowledged. The intelligent do not expect purity, they expect contingency, and they design strategy around it. Trust is a calculation, not a sentiment. Loyalty is a structure built from perceived benefit, not moral obligation. To underestimate this is to surrender agency, to become an instrument rather than a master. The landscape of wealth is littered with those who assumed fidelity without verification, who relied on hope rather than scrutiny. They are warnings, instructive in their failure, examples of what occurs when human patterns are ignored. The successful act with foresight, anticipating shifts before they manifest, controlling the flow of influence rather than succumbing to it. Observation must be relentless, not casual. Human behavior, though complex, is patterned. Emotion and instinct are predictable when studied, and incentives guide action more reliably than rhetoric. Fear compels, desire motivates, opportunity entices. Those who recognize these forces manipulate them with precision, aligning circumstance with ambition. Timing, execution, and subtlety are the instruments through which advantage is obtained, maintained, and extended. The masses labor with blind energy, unaware of the architecture around them. The masters act within that architecture, bending it to purpose, shaping outcomes, converting knowledge into power and influence into wealth. Every gesture carries consequence. Public appearances, statements, decisions, they resonate beyond immediate perception, influencing networks, expectations, and loyalties. The wise understand the currency of perception, controlling it to direct behavior without confrontation. Wealth is accumulated not solely through action, but through the orchestration of belief and expectation. The visible world is an interface. Beneath it flows the reality of influence, negotiation, and manipulation. Those who control perception control both opportunity and outcome. Those who fail are guided by it, instruments in systems they do not comprehend. Isolation is both burden and advantage. Decisions must be made alone, weighed against consequences that others cannot perceive. carried with clarity that isolates the mind. Counsel is provisional. Allies may serve but rarely align perfectly with interest. The successful cultivate independence of thought, clarity of judgment, and the discipline to act without reliance on approval. To navigate the machinery of influence is to accept solitude as a prerequisite of mastery. The mind, unencumbered by sentiment, perceives truth, anticipates shifts, and acts decisively. The mind, bound by convention and morality, is manipulated, directed, and ultimately consumed. Every encounter is a test of leverage. Every negotiation, every conversation, every engagement is a vector through which advantage can be asserted or surrendered. The intelligent recognize leverage where others see routine. They act with calculation where others act with habit. Wealth is not a product of effort alone. It is a function of insight, timing, and manipulation. The instruments of others, whether friends, colleagues, or rivals, are to be read, understood, and employed. Human patterns are consistent, their weaknesses exploitable. The master observes, predicts, and intervenes, while the unknowing remain compliant, useful, and expendable. The architecture of power is invisible to those not trained to see it. Institutions, markets, hierarchies all operate as mechanisms of influence, composed of human behavior converted into predictable outputs. Those who navigate these systems successfully understand the rules, anticipate the shifts, and act decisively where others flounder. Fear and desire, loyalty and ambition, perception and consequence, these are the levers of control. The unaware are led by them, the skilled manipulate them. To occupy the summit of wealth and influence is to recognize that most operate as tools, and only a few ascend by mastering the machinery around them. Strategy is a discipline of observation, calculation, and execution. Opportunity is ephemeral, errors costly, and hesitation fatal. Every decision must be evaluated for risk and reward, every alliance scrutinized for contingency, every action measured for consequence. The world rewards neither morality nor diligence alone. It rewards comprehension, foresight, and the capacity to act decisively. Those who fail to see the mechanics of influence are conscripted as instruments. Those who perceive them are architects, converting knowledge and observation into the tangible accumulation of power and wealth. The difference is the application of mind to circumstance, the audacity to act, and the discipline to sustain control. The mastery of circumstance demands both patience and decisiveness. One must wait for the alignment of forces, yet act the instant opportunity presents itself, for delay is often fatal and haste equally perilous. Observe the currents of influence, the subtle shifts in allegiance, the quiet tremors of fear and ambition that run beneath the surface of every interaction. Those attuned to these currents maneuver with precision, shaping outcomes before opposition is even aware of its vulnerability. Wealth and power are not the consequence of hope or virtue. They are the product of insight, timing, and the unflinching execution of strategy. The majority move like shadows in a storm, buffeted by forces they neither perceive nor understand, and thus remain tools for those who command with clarity. Every individual is a reservoir of utility, some more potent than others, yet all contain potential energy that can be harnessed. To command is to identify these reservoirs, to measure their capacity, and to channel them toward defined ends. Obedience, loyalty, and compliance are not natural states. They are cultivated through careful orchestration of incentive, threat, and perception. The untrained ruler relies on trust, friendship, or goodwill. The astute ruler relies on understanding, anticipation, and manipulation of human inclination. To fail in this comprehension is to surrender autonomy, to become subject to the very mechanisms one should command. The effective architect of wealth and influence does not assume cooperation. He designs for it, extracts from it, and preserves control with relentless vigilance. The theater of appearances is as consequential as reality itself. How one is perceived shapes opportunity, dictates expectation, and guides behavior of allies and rivals alike. Competence, decisiveness, and strength of will must be demonstrated strategically, for perception is the medium through which influence is extended. The public and private selves are instruments to be calibrated. Gestures, speech, and silence alike become vectors of power when employed deliberately. Wealth flows toward those who master this choreography of image and action, while those who ignore it are swept along by perception, manipulated, and ultimately exploited. Isolation is both a crucible and a lens. Decision-making untainted by the distortions of expectation or loyalty reveals the truths hidden in plain sight. Allies offer counsel, but their interest seldom aligns perfectly with one's own. Friends may obscure as much as they illuminate. The disciplined mind observes, discerns, and acts, unswayed by sentiment, untethered by dependency. Solitude clarifies judgment, exposes opportunity, and reveals risk. The successful recognize that influence and wealth demand this independence of thought, this capacity to act unencumbered by the motives or limitations of others. Those who cling to companionship or consensus too tightly relinquish control. They become tools, not architects. The accumulation of wealth and influence is a process of leverage, subtle and overt. Every negotiation, every interaction, every calculated act of persuasion or restraint contributes to the architecture of advantage. The intelligent operator perceives leverage where others perceive routine, acts where others hesitate, and converts every opportunity into consolidation of control. Human behavior is consistent in its response to incentive and threat. Understanding this allows for manipulation without conflict, extraction without exposure. Those unaware of this principle labor as instruments, their energy converted into gain for the perceptive few who comprehend and apply these immutable patterns. Strategy demands an intimate comprehension of the currents of fear, desire, and ambition. Anticipation precedes action. Insight precedes execution. Men and institutions respond predictably to incentives and pressure. Those who can foresee shifts and act decisively seize advantage. Wealth is secured through understanding, manipulation, and disciplined application of insight. It is lost through complacency, sentiment, or error. The world is neither just nor virtuous. It is functional, responsive to intelligence, decisiveness, and the ruthless application of principle. The majority serve, the few ascend. This is neither moral nor cruel, it is inevitable. Control is maintained through continuous assessment. Loyalty must be measured, perception managed, and consequence enforced. Power is not static. It erodes without attention, corrodes without action. The instruments of influence, men, markets, institutions require constant calibration. Those who neglect this maintenance are quickly replaced by those who understand the machinery. Wealth and dominion are not granted. They are engineered, preserved, and extended through relentless observation, precise execution, and strategic foresight. Every victory carries with it the requirement of vigilance. Every gain demands consolidation. Opportunity is ephemeral. Human behavior is mutable. The intelligent ruler secures advantage through anticipation and foresight, exploiting hesitation and miscalculation. Fear and desire are calibrated, loyalty structured, perception directed. The unobservant are conscripted as instruments. The disciplined operate as architects. Mastery is achieved not through moral superiority, but through comprehension of human patterns, the patient orchestration of action, and the unwavering application of insight. The accumulation of influence is inseparable from the understanding of human weakness. Pride, fear, envy, and desire are the engines that move men. Those who manipulate them control the direction of effort and attention. The majority act without awareness, swept along by impulses and circumstance, believing themselves autonomous while serving as instruments for the perceptive few. To master this landscape is to read the invisible patterns, to discern who can be persuaded, who must be intimidated, and who will inevitably betray. Anticipation, rather than reaction, defines success. Foresight converts chaos into order and perception into leverage. Wealth is secured not by labor alone, but by the orchestration of human tendencies, the calibration of expectation, and the precise application of pressure and incentive. Alliances are temporary, conditional, and transactional. To assume permanence is to court disaster. Men are guided by interest, ambition, and survival. They rarely act from principle alone. The strategist recognizes this, measures the alignment of objectives, and constructs relationships that serve both immediate and long-term ends. Trust is calculated, not granted freely. Loyalty is cultivated through alignment of self-interest and consequence. The untrained ruler relies on friendship, sentiment, or ideology. The effective ruler relies on insight, anticipation, and the orchestration of circumstance. To ignore these truths is to become a pawn in a game whose rules one does not understand. Every interaction contains potential energy, a latent vector of advantage or compromise. Words, gestures, silences, and appearances all convey influence, capable of shaping expectation, redirecting loyalty, and consolidating power. Those attuned to these subtleties manipulate them deliberately, extracting advantage without overt confrontation, managing perception to reinforce authority. Wealth, influence, and control are amplified by mastery of these invisible levers. The unobservant, meanwhile, contribute their labor, loyalty, and energy to the ambitions of others without comprehension. Human behavior, when studied closely, is consistent and predictable. The successful perceive these consistencies and act decisively, while the majority drift, guided by the currents of others' design. Risk is an inseparable companion to opportunity. Hesitation forfeits potential. Impetuosity invites ruin. The intelligent operator measures consequence with precision, calculating the probability of resistance, betrayal, or failure, and acts when alignment is exact. Timing is the silent arbiter of success. A moment misjudged is a fortune lost. Observation alone is insufficient. Execution transforms insight into tangible gain. Those who fail to recognize the criticality of timing, of sequencing, of leverage, are conscripted into outcomes determined by those who do. The difference between master and tool is not morality, not virtue, but discernment, audacity, and disciplined application of strategy. Information is the most potent form of currency. To know is to anticipate. To anticipate is to control. Public declarations, private conversations, and hidden networks all contain signals of intent, weakness, and opportunity. The perceptive recognize these signals and act, converting knowledge into influence, influence into wealth, and wealth into enduring power. The naive assume transparency, the skilled interpret opacity. Every secret, every omission, every subtlety is a potential instrument to be employed. Those blind to these dynamics serve as conduits for the designs of others. Those who perceive and act become architects of circumstance. The mind of the successful operator is disciplined, analytical, and unclouded by sentiment. Emotion is observed, not indulged. Loyalty is examined, not assumed. Consequences calculated, not deferred. Independence of thought is a prerequisite of mastery, for reliance upon the understanding, fidelity, or morality of others is exposure. Solitude is both a weapon and a lens. Decisions made alone are untainted, precise, and actionable. To navigate the machinery of influence and accumulation is to embrace this isolation, to convert insight into execution, and to recognize that most men function as instruments while few wield them. Control extends beyond immediate circumstance into the orchestration of perception. Reputation, image, and expectation are as vital as capital and strategy. The skilled operator molds perception as clay, shaping it to guide behavior, manipulate expectation, and secure advantage without overt force. Public display and private action are coordinated, calculated, and deliberate. What is seen must serve a purpose. What is concealed must protect opportunity. Influence is extended not only through command, but through suggestion, implication, and the orchestration of belief. The unobservant follow the cues of others, unaware that their movements are guided, their labor appropriated, their loyalties leveraged for ends they cannot perceive. To understand this is to occupy a position above the fray, converting observation into strategy, foresight into action, and insight into tangible accumulation of control and wealth. Every decision resonates beyond its immediate context, rippling through networks, institutions, and human behavior. Consequence is rarely confined to intent. It is magnified by perception, amplified by expectation, and refracted by human ambition. The perceptive ruler calculates these trajectories, anticipating response before action is taken, aligning effect with intention, and preempting resistance through subtle orchestration. Those who fail to perceive the expansive reach of consequence find themselves swept along by forces they cannot command, contributing their energy, loyalty, and ambition to the designs of others. Mastery is exercised not through moral rectitude, but through comprehension, anticipation, and precise execution. Power is sustained through continuous engagement with the mechanisms of influence. Loyalty is neither assumed nor permanent. It is nurtured, tested, and, when necessary, redirected. Fear, desire, ambition, and hope are calibrated, measured, and employed as levers to maintain alignment and ensure compliance. The successful recognize that influence must be actively managed, that reputation requires maintenance, and that control erodes without vigilance. Those who neglect these realities are displaced, manipulated, and ultimately consumed by the very forces they failed to master. The world does not pause for sentiment, virtue, or hesitation. It responds to calculation, insight, and decisive action. All human relationships are conditional. All social structures are instruments. To act otherwise is to surrender autonomy. Allies may serve, but they are rarely aligned perfectly. Rivals may resist, but they are predictable if studied. Every engagement contains vectors of advantage. Every interaction contains risk. The master operator perceives these dimensions, anticipates shifts, and converts potential into tangible gains. The unperceptive remain tools, swept along by circumstance, manipulated by those who observe, calculate, and execute with precision. Wealth, power, and influence are not distributed equitably. They are captured by those who understand the machinery of human behavior and act relentlessly within it. The architecture of influence is both visible and concealed, composed of human behavior converted into patterns, incentives, and predictable responses. To navigate it successfully is to perceive these structures, anticipate their operation, and intervene decisively. The majority operate as components, laboring with energy, loyalty, and intention they do not control. The skilled manipulate these components to construct outcomes advantageous to themselves. Observation alone is insufficient. Comprehension, calculation, and action transform understanding into mastery. Those who fail to perceive these structures are conscripted as instruments. Those who perceive and act are architects of circumstance, converting insight into enduring control. Opportunity is ephemeral and must be seized with precision. Hesitation invites loss. Error invites exposure. The intelligent operator evaluates probability, measures risk, and acts decisively when alignment is exact. Timing converts insight into advantage, observation into acquisition, and perception into authority. The majority act reactively, swept along by currents they cannot perceive. The perceptive act proactively, bending circumstance to purpose, shaping expectation, and converting human behavior into tools for accumulation of influence and wealth. The difference between master and instrument is the application of knowledge, foresight, and decisive execution. Every layer of society, every interaction, every institutional process contains potential for leverage. The perceptive observe, anticipate, and manipulate, converting subtlety into strategic advantage. Men respond predictably to incentive, threat, and opportunity. Those who understand these patterns direct effort and loyalty, while the majority follow unseen currents, useful but uncomprehending. Influence is both art and science. Wealth is the tangible expression of its disciplined application. Those who perceive, calculate, and act decisively accumulate, while those who hope, trust, or rely upon sentiment remain instruments, contributing energy, ambition, and labor to forces they neither command nor comprehend. The mind that commands must remain disciplined, detached, and alert. Emotion is observed, not indulged. Loyalty is assessed, not assumed. Consequences calculated, not deferred. Independence of thought is requisite, for reliance on the perception, morality, or fidelity of others invites manipulation. Solitude clarifies judgment, exposes opportunity, and permits decisive action untainted by distortion. To master wealth and influence is to embrace this solitude, converting observation into strategy, insight into execution, and comprehension into the architecture of enduring power. The manipulation of perception is the invisible scaffolding upon which all influence rests. Men are guided more by what they believe than by what is, and to shape belief is to shape behavior. Every gesture, every word, every omission conveys information, signals intent, and alters expectation. Those who recognize this convert the mundane into leverage, aligning human energy to their designs without visible coercion. The majority act according to assumption and impulse, their actions predictable, their loyalties transferable, their labor appropriated without awareness. To operate above this tide is to see the currents beneath, to measure their direction and strength, and to act with precision that others cannot anticipate. Every individual contains vectors of use. Every interaction is a node of potential influence. Ambition, desire, fear, and hope are the instruments by which behavior is guided. The perceptive operator identifies these vectors, calibrates their application, and directs the flow of effort and attention toward objectives advantageous to themselves. Those blind to this reality remain tools, their energy consumed by purposes not their own. Mastery is not moral. It is the disciplined observation, comprehension, and application of the principles governing human conduct. Wealth, power, and influence are the product of such mastery. Inattention and sentiment are the recipe for subjugation. Timing and decisiveness are the linchpins of action. Observation without execution is impotent. Insight without initiative is wasted. The operator measures probability, calculates consequence, and intervenes when alignment is precise. Hesitation sacrifices opportunity. Impulsivity invites ruin. The majority respond reactively to circumstance. The perceptive bend circumstance to purpose, orchestrating perception, guiding loyalty, and converting human behavior into instruments of accumulation. Success is measured not by the morality of action, but by the precision and effect of execution, by the capacity to convert understanding into advantage and observation into command. Control is continuous, requiring vigilance and constant recalibration. Loyalty is provisional. Alliances are mutable. Institutions are instruments that demand maintenance. Reputation, appearance, and expectation are tools as vital as capital or force. The perceptive test allegiance, calibrate ambition, reward compliance, and redirect aspiration to preserve alignment. Neglect these principles and one is displaced, manipulated, and consumed by forces whose mechanics remain invisible. The world does not pause for sentiment, virtue, or hesitation. It bends to calculation, anticipation, and the decisive application of insight. Human relationships are inherently transactional, and social structures are instruments. To assume otherwise is to surrender agency. Allies may serve, but their interests rarely align perfectly. Rivals may resist, but their behavior is discernible through study. Each engagement contains opportunity and risk. The master operator perceives these dimensions, anticipates shifts, and converts potential into advantage. The majority, unaware of these dynamics, serve as instruments for the designs of others. Mastery arises not from virtue, morality, or luck, but from disciplined observation, comprehension of human patterns, and execution. The architecture of influence exists both in the open and in hidden structures. Patterns of behavior, response to incentive, and perception of consequence form a lattice through which opportunity flows. To navigate it successfully is to perceive the lattice, anticipate its operation, and intervene decisively. Observation alone does not suffice. Understanding must be converted into action. Those who perceive but do not act remain spectators. Those who perceive and act become architects of circumstance, converting insight into enduring control. Wealth and influence are not distributed randomly. They are seized by those who recognize the machinery of human behavior and employ it with precision. Every opportunity is ephemeral. Delay invites loss. Miscalculation invites exposure. The perceptive operator evaluates probability, measures risk, and acts when alignment is exact. Timing converts insight into advantage, observation into acquisition, and perception into authority. The majority drift, reactive and uncomprehending. The perceptive act, shaping circumstance to purpose, orchestrating perception, and converting human behavior into instruments of accumulation. Knowledge is power only when coupled with decisive execution. Inaction consigns one to serve forces beyond comprehension. Every stratum of society, every interaction, every institution contains vectors of leverage. The perceptive perceive, anticipate, and manipulate, transforming subtlety into strategic advantage. Human behavior is responsive to threat, reward, and expectation. The perceptive exploit this consistency, directing effort and loyalty, while the majority serve unknowingly. Influence is both art and science. Wealth is its material manifestation. Those who act with insight, precision, and foresight accumulate. Those who trust, hope, or rely on sentiment remain instruments, their energy, ambition, and labor consumed by others' design. The commanding mind must be disciplined, detached, and vigilant. Emotion is a signal, not a guide. Loyalty is a resource, not a given. Consequence is a variable, not an afterthought. Independence of thought shields from manipulation. Reliance on morality or fidelity of others invites exposure. Solitude clarifies judgment, exposes opportunity, and permits decisive action untainted by distortion. To master influence and wealth is to embrace this solitude, converting observation into strategy, insight into execution, and comprehension into the architecture of enduring power. The world is a theater of appearances, each actor moving according to scripts dictated by perception, desire, and fear. To intervene effectively is to understand the narrative others inhabit, to manipulate the stage so that outcomes align with one's design. Every word, every gesture, every omission carries consequence, shaping belief, expectation, and behavior. Those who understand this craft act invisibly, bending currents without exposure, aligning human effort and ambition to their purpose, while the majority drift unaware, guided by instinct, hope, or obligation. Mastery is the silent orchestration of energy, attention, and allegiance, converting insight into accumulation, observation into command. Fear and ambition are instruments of compliance. The perceptive operator discerns which lever to apply to which individual, recognizing that the same impulse can yield obedience, exertion, or betrayal depending on application. To ignore these forces is to surrender agency. To harness them is to extend influence without expenditure of overt force. Men act predictably when motives are exposed, and those who see these motives operate with precision, converting human behavior into strategic advantage. Those blind to these currents serve as tools, their energy deployed in service of purposes they scarcely perceive, their labor and loyalty appropriated without recognition. Power is not a state, it is a process. It exists in the alignment of perception, action, and consequence, constantly shifting with attention, expectation, and circumstance. Control is provisional, requiring continuous assessment, adjustment, and intervention. Alliances must be maintained, loyalty monitored, and appearance managed. The perceptive operator anticipates shifts, redirects ambition, and orchestrates incentive, preserving alignment while exploiting opportunity. Neglect these dynamics and influence erodes, authority dissipates, and wealth, material or strategic, is forfeited to those who understand the machinery of human behavior. Observation alone is impotent. Comprehension alone is sterile. Knowledge becomes power only when applied with precision, decisiveness, and timing. The majority act reactively, responding to circumstance. The perceptive act proactively, shaping circumstance to purpose, guiding perception, and converting human behavior into instruments of accumulation. Every opportunity lost is leverage surrendered, every hesitation a doorway to disadvantage. Success is measured in alignment, achieved, influence exercised, and advantage secured, not in moral rectitude, sentiment, or hope. Every relationship is transactional. Every interaction contains vectors of risk and opportunity. The perceptive operator measures loyalty, gauges ambition, and manipulates perception to convert behavior into advantage. Allies serve under calibration. Adversaries are predicted and anticipated, and institutions are instruments requiring constant attention. The world does not pause for sentiment, morality, or hesitation. It yields to insight applied with discipline, timing, and decisiveness. The majority contribute their effort, ambition, and attention unknowingly, their labor converted into instruments of the designs of others. Wealth is the tangible expression of influence exercised with foresight, precision, and timing. The perceptive convert observation into strategy, strategy into execution, and execution into accumulation. Those who act with insight accumulate, while those who trust, hope, or rely on sentiment remain tools, their energy consumed by forces they fail to perceive. Mastery is not moral, it is disciplined, comprehension of human behavior, decisive intervention, and conversion of potential into advantage. Every moment contains vectors of opportunity. Every interaction contains leverage. Only the perceptive see, act, and consolidate. Solitude is the crucible of judgment. Emotion is a signal, not a guide. Loyalty is a resource, not a certainty. Consequence is a variable, not a footnote. Independence of thought protects from manipulation, and reliance on sentiment invites exposure. The perceptive maintain alertness, calibrate incentive, and act with precision, transforming observation into strategy, understanding into command, and insight into enduring influence. To master wealth, power, and influence is to embrace this solitude, to act decisively, and to convert human behavior into instruments aligned with purpose. The machinery of perception governs human action. Belief shapes behavior, expectation dictates response, and understanding these dynamics converts individuals into instruments of accumulation. Those who perceive without acting remain spectators. Those who act without perception fail. Only the combination of observation, comprehension, and decisive execution secures command, converts influence into wealth, and transforms insight into enduring control. The majority drift, reactive and uncomprehending. The perceptive act, shaping circumstance, orchestrating perception, and converting behavior into strategic advantage. Loyalty is never given. It is negotiated, tested, and maintained. Men pledge allegiance as long as advantage aligns with desire, and the perceptive operator understands this with unflinching clarity. Incentive, perception, and timing govern fidelity more than sentiment, more than duty. To presume permanence is folly. To anticipate shift is mastery. Every promise, every oath, every sign of fidelity is a potential lever, and those who recognize this convert obligation into instrument, ambition into service, and compliance into advantage. The majority mistake civility for loyalty, trust for alignment, and hope for commitment, their energies deployed for causes they scarcely perceive. Manipulation is subtle, invisible, yet absolute when executed with precision. The perceptive observe patterns, measure impulses, and guide perception, ensuring that behavior aligns with design while the subject believes themselves sovereign. Fear, desire, expectation, and aspiration are not weaknesses, but tools. Tools to shape, direct, and harvest human effort. The operator does not coerce openly. He orchestrates the currents beneath, allowing action to appear voluntary while it serves calculation. Those unaware are instruments. Those aware but indecisive are impotent. Only those who perceive and act with calculated precision convert human behavior into enduring accumulation. Influence is cumulative, relentless, and unforgiving. Every interaction carries consequence, every observation contains leverage, and every hesitation invites loss. The perceptive act continuously, aligning perception with purpose, adjusting expectation, and exploiting opportunity with surgical precision. The majority drift, reactive, their loyalty transferable, their effort appropriated, their ambition borrowed. Mastery is not moral, it is strategic, relentless, and unobserved. Wealth, power, and control are not inherited. They are seized by those who see the machinery of human behavior and apply it without hesitation. To act with insight, to manipulate perception, to convert human energy into purpose that is the domain of the few, the instrumented and the calculating, while the rest serve as tools in a world that bows to decisiveness, precision, and unflinching comprehension. The truth is stark, unadorned, and merciless. Most men are not masters of wealth, power, or influence. They are its instruments. Their labor, ambition, and loyalty circulate through the designs of others, a river of energy redirected without their comprehension. To stand apart is to perceive the currents beneath, to understand the invisible scaffolding of desire, fear, and expectation, and to act with relentless precision. Mastery is not a gift of virtue or sentiment. It is the disciplined comprehension of human nature, the strategic orchestration of perception, and the decisive conversion of opportunity into command. To accumulate, to influence, to endure, one must embrace solitude as a crucible, observation as a weapon, and decisiveness as the measure of strength. Emotion misleads, loyalty deceives, hésitation destroy. Only those who act with insight, timing, and unflinching calculation convert potential into reality, chaos into structure, and opportunity into advantage. The majority drift in hope they mistake for agency, while the perceptive convert knowledge into accumulation, perception into control, and understanding into architecture. The final lesson is neither comforting nor flattering. Wealth is not a reward for effort. Influence is not a byproduct of virtue. They are seized by those who see clearly, act decisively, and exploit the hidden vectors of human behavior. To exist as a master in this world is to embrace this truth, to manipulate perception with care, to calibrate loyalty, to anticipate ambition, and to orchestrate circumstance with relentless attention. Those unwilling to see, unwilling to act, are instruments, serving the purposes of others without awareness. Rise above, observe without attachment, act without hesitation. Convert insight into execution, strategy into accumulation, and human behavior into enduring advantage. The world is neither fair nor forgiving. It yields only to those who understand its machinery, who command without remorse, and who wield the invisible forces of influence with unerring precision. To be a master is to be vigilant, decisive, and unrelenting, and nothing else will suffice.